There is an old saying that goes, "The universe is a mirror that reflects back to man the shape of his thoughts." Most people read it with some distance, as if it were just another poetic metaphor. But if you pause for a few seconds, you'll discover that it holds a truth that could completely change the way you understand your life. What if everything around you, your relationships, your successes, your fears, even the small accidents that seem like coincidences, were all reflections of your own mind? It may sound exaggerated, and yet, every time you react to something, you're interpreting it through a network of thoughts that, like an invisible filter, colors your experience. The world doesn't reach you as it is, it reaches you as you are. This idea can seem intimidating because it forces us to look within, but it's also liberating. If the mind creates your experience, then you can learn to direct it. When someone criticizes you, for example, your immediate interpretation depends less on what the other person says and more on what you believe about yourself. If you see yourself as insecure, that criticism will sting more. If you feel confident, you may even perceive it as an opportunity to grow. Same event, two different realities. The difference lies in the mind that observes it. That is the foundation of the invisible architecture of reality. Every thought is a brick, every belief a structural beam. What you hold within eventually takes shape outside. And it's not magic, it's coherence. Your mind is always seeking to confirm what it believes to be true. It can't help it. If you think the world is hostile, you'll filter your perceptions to find hostility. If you believe there is beauty, your eyes will become experts at finding it. Over a century ago, a man decided to put this idea to the test. His name was Wallace Wattles, author of The Science of Getting Rich. Before writing that book, he wanted to see if the mind could truly attract circumstances. For 30 consecutive days, he visualized each night that he received letters containing money. He didn't imagine lotteries or inheritances, but payments for work already done. According to his personal journals, discovered years later, on the 29th day, 3 real letters arrived, each containing money that had been owed to him for months. Wattles didn't interpret it as a miracle, but as a natural adjustment. His mind had changed its focus, and with it, the way he acted, spoke, and wrote. The opportunities had always been there, he just hadn't noticed them before. This doesn't mean that thinking is enough for everything to happen effortlessly. It means that the mind directs action with a precision we often ignore. If you change your inner direction, you change the course of your energy. The architecture is redrawn. In the 1990s, psychologist Daniel Wegner discovered something curious that we now know as the ironic effect of the mind. He asked a group of students not to think of a white bear for 5 minutes. None of them succeeded. The more they tried to avoid the image, the clearer it became in their minds. Wegner demonstrated that the mind doesn't understand negation. When you say, "I don't want to fail," your attention inevitably goes toward the idea of failure. It's as if your inner architect were interpreting your fears as blueprints for construction. That's why, every time you focus your thoughts on what you don't want, you are unknowingly reinforcing its presence. This discovery, which seems so simple, explains much of human frustration. We want to change, but we constantly think about the mistake, the obstacle, what might go wrong. We're not designing a new reality, we're reinforcing the old one. The paradox of expectation, that phenomenon where the more you long for something, the further it seems to move away, works in exactly the same way. When you wait with anxiety, you are internally affirming, "I don't have it yet. I'm still not enough." And the universe, like a faithful mirror, reflects that sense of lack. But when you release the tension, when you place yourself in a state of quiet confidence, reality begins to align. Not because something external changes magically, but because your mind stops sabotaging the process. You've probably experienced this without realizing it. Think of a moment when you were desperately trying to find an idea, and only when you gave up did it appear, or when you stopped searching for your keys, and as soon as you relaxed, they appeared right in front of you. It wasn't luck. It was an instant reorganization of your attention. A tense mind contracts the perceptual field. A calm mind expands it. In 2002, a group of neuroscientists in Lausanne investigated a phenomenon called autoscopy, or out-of-body experience. By stimulating a specific region of the brain, some patients reported seeing themselves from outside, observing their own body on the table. Beyond what this implies neurologically, the fact reveals something fascinating. The mind can project a point of view beyond matter. It can literally move perception to another place. The interesting part isn't the sensational mystery of leaving the body, but what it demonstrates. Perception is malleable. Reality, for us, begins at the point where we place our consciousness. If you can change your point of view within your mind, you can change the way you experience the world. Think about it. When you recall a happy moment, you relive it emotionally, even though it happened years ago. In that instant, your body responds with real sensations. Your nervous system doesn't distinguish between a vividly imagined experience and an actual one. And if that happens inside, why couldn't it also project outward? Let's return to the mirror metaphor. If the universe reflects you, the image you see doesn't depend on the mirror. It depends on the face you show it. No one blames the mirror for reflecting a sad expression. And yet, we spend our lives blaming the world for our inner reflections. We say, "People make me feel," when, in truth, people only awaken what was already within us. Authentic change doesn't begin outside. It begins in the silent conversation you have with yourself when no one is listening. Observing your thoughts doesn't mean repressing them or faking positivity. It means learning to recognize what kind of mental energy you're emitting. Is it fear, guilt, expectation, gratitude? Each one constructs a different kind of world. Try this. For an entire day, decide to see everything that happens as a reflection of your mental state. If something irritates you, ask yourself what part of you is being reflected in that. If something brings you joy, acknowledge it too as a manifestation of your own focus. Don't look for guilt or mysticism, just observe. What you'll discover may be unsettling but deeply liberating. Wattles understood this without formulas. His visualization worked not because he attracted money from thin air, but because he changed his internal identity. He stopped being a man who waited for prosperity and became one who generated it. When that coherence is established, mind and reality synchronize, and you can do the same. Start by observing your most recurring thoughts. They are the blueprints of your inner architecture. Ask yourself if you truly want to keep living in that construction. If not, don't fight against it. Redraw it. Don't say, "I don't want more fear." Say, "I want serenity." Don't say, "I don't want to be alone." Say, "I want to share my joy." The mind needs clear images, not negations. Every word, every thought, every emotion is a line on the invisible blueprint of your reality. What you build today will be the space you live in tomorrow. And if you ever doubt that this is real, remember Wattles, remember the white bear experiment, remember the patient who saw himself from outside his body. All, in different times and contexts, point to the same truth. Reality doesn't begin in the world, it begins in your mind. So look into the mirror of the universe with a new intention. Don't ask it to change first. Change yourself, and the reflection will follow. The mind as the stage of the universe. The ancient initiates of Eleusis used to say, "He who masters his attention governs his world." That phrase, carved into stone tablets that survived the ashes of time, contains a wisdom we are only beginning to rediscover. Attention is not passive. It is the force that shapes both the inner and outer universe. Think of your attention as a beam of light in a dark room. Where you direct it, reality appears. Everything outside that beam simply doesn't exist for you. You can't perceive it, react to it, or make decisions that include it. That's why the power of the mind is not so much about creating from nothing, but about illuminating what already exists in potential. Life is a stage filled with infinite possible elements, but only those you focus on become active. From childhood, we are taught to look outward, to react to the environment, to compete for the world's attention. But almost no one teaches us to observe what fuels our own attention. The untrained human mind jumps like a monkey from branch to branch, from fear to desire, from past to future, from complaint to comparison. And each jump projects a small, temporary universe that dissolves before it can solidify. That's why so many projects remain unfinished and so many intentions fade away. Fragmented attention cannot build a coherent reality. What we call destiny is often nothing more than the accumulated result of what we choose to look at and keep in mind. Attention is the seed of all conscious creation. Sow attention in fear, and you'll reap limitations. Sow attention in possibility, and action will sprout. And this is not a spiritual metaphor. It's a psychological principle, measurable and repeatable. In the 1980s, a phenomenon puzzled the authorities of several U.S. cities. Thousands of practitioners of transcendental meditation gathered in different places across the country with one purpose: to sustain for weeks a deep state of calm and mental coherence without any physical contact with the environment. The official records showed something unexpected. During those gatherings, rates of crime, accidents, and conflict dropped significantly. This phenomenon became known as the Maharishi effect. Although science still debates its mechanisms, the statistics were real and published in academic journals. The interesting part isn't whether meditation magically changed the cities, but what it demonstrates. A focused mind can radiate order into its surroundings. If a group can affect a collective environment, what could an individual do by learning to govern their attention within their personal universe? You don't need to change the entire world, just the mental space from which you observe it. What happens within you happens everywhere, because consciousness knows no boundaries. The British neurologist and writer Oliver Sacks documented a case that challenges the limits of perception. It was about a boy who had been blind from birth, yet claimed he could draw colors. When given pencils and paper, he created scenes with consistent colors: the yellow sun, the blue sky, the green trees, though he had never seen them. When asked how he did it, he replied, "I don't see them with my eyes. I see them with my head." Sacks, fascinated, concluded that the boy's brain had built a visual map out of concepts, thermal sensations, and emotional associations. His mind supplied through imagination what sight could not provide. That reveals something astonishing. Perception depends less on the senses than on the consciousness that interprets them. The boy didn't see colors, he generated them. And if a human mind can create visual experience without external stimulus, what other experiences might we be manufacturing without realizing it? Perhaps many of our problems exist only within the frame from which we choose to view them. It may seem impossible that something as simple as attention could determine so much, but examples abound. Anthropologists discovered communities in the Himalayas whose languages lacked words for numbers greater than 5. When shown large groups of objects, they couldn't distinguish between 10 and 20. For them, both were simply many. This phenomenon of the missing number shows how the limits of language and of thought define the limits of reality. If you don't have a word or an idea for something, that thing literally doesn't exist in your experience. And here arises an essential question. How many possible realities remain invisible because your mental vocabulary is too small to name them? How many opportunities go unnoticed because your attention has been trained to see only what it fears, what it lacks, what hurts. The mind, when uncultivated, becomes a fogged mirror. It reflects only a fraction of the universe. But when you clean it, when you practice focusing without dispersion, the world expands. The same events gain more nuance, the same people appear different, and you discover that you have far more power than you ever imagined. Mastering attention doesn't mean forcing it or hammering positive thoughts into place. It means learning to observe without being swept away, just as you watch a fire without becoming the flame. When you can hold your focus without resistance, the mind grows still, and in that silence, clarity emerges. It is then that the stage of reality reveals itself as it truly is, and you can consciously choose which role to play. Something curious happens when a person begins to train their attention. Their environment starts to synchronize. It's not that things fix themselves, rather, actions become more coherent, decisions firmer, emotions more stable. An architect of the mind does not live at the mercy of chance. They learn to read the invisible script they are writing every day. If the universe is a stage, attention is the light of the projector. Where you aim it, the scene appears. Focus only on mistakes, and you illuminate them. Direct your focus toward learning, and the scene transforms, without removing anything, simply by changing the direction of the light. That's why the ancient sages were right. To govern attention is to govern the world. And yet, we live in an era competing to steal it from us. Every notification, every stimulus, every social comparison acts as a tiny thief sneaking into the temple of the mind. The true luxury of the 21st century is not time, it's sustained attention. Whoever owns it creates. Whoever loses it is created by others. Practicing conscious attention is like strengthening a dormant muscle. At first it's difficult, but soon it becomes a natural extension of being. It's not about policing every thought, but gently choosing where to look. Once you choose, everything else organizes itself around that choice. Think again of Saxe's boy. He had no eyes, but he had inner direction. His mind transformed lack into perception. The same can happen with you. Where certainty is missing, imagination can build. Where evidence is absent, attention can open a path. Nothing exists until you look at it with interest. And that's not just poetry. Quantum physics has shown that the observer alters the observed. The particle behaves differently when someone measures it. Although we still don't fully understand why, we know that consciousness actively participates in the fabric of reality. So when you tell yourself, "I don't know what to do, there's no way out," or "this is just how things are," remember, maybe you're simply looking from too narrow a point on the stage. Widen the light, change the angle, let your attention explore new spaces. After all, the universe holds infinite scenes waiting for someone to illuminate them, so practice observing your day as if you were the director of a play. Where are you focusing your light? On lack or on possibility? On criticism or on creation? You don't need to change the actors or the set, just relight the scene. You'll see how, little by little, the world's script begins to answer you with new dialogue. Attention, that silent power we take for granted, is the bridge between the invisible and the visible. What you imagine with clarity, what you hold with intention and emotion, eventually weaves patterns of experience that are measurable, observable, and tangible. Mastering it is not only a spiritual art, it is the intimate science of constructing reality. And, as with any great stage, the universe is waiting for you to lift the curtain. The play doesn't begin until you choose to look. The creative power of directed thought. The ancient Gnostics taught an idea as simple as it was unsettling. Reality is a set of mental agreements repeated until they become visible. What we call real today is nothing more than a collective construction of sustained thoughts. If an entire society agrees to believe in something, a currency, a law, an idea of success, it becomes solid, tangible, almost unquestionable. But behind every physical form still pulses the thought that sustains it. That same law operates on the individual level. Your personal reality is made of inner agreements you repeat again and again, sometimes without realizing it. Those agreements become your way of understanding the world. You say, "I'm just like this. This always happens to me. Things are hard." And each of those phrases is an invisible command your mind faithfully executes. That's why true conscious creation begins when you learn to review your mental agreements. Trying to change matter without changing thought is like trying to rewrite a song by blowing on the record. The sound will remain the same. The mind doesn't just imagine, it organizes energy. Every mental image carries an associated emotion, and that emotion acts like an electrical current that drives manifestation. It's not enough to think something, you must feel it. Emotion is the glue that fastens the image to the field of the real. The case of pianist Paul Wittgenstein illustrates this truth with moving clarity. In 1915, during World War I, he lost his right arm in combat. Many believed his career was over. Yet, while recovering, Wittgenstein decided to practice mentally. He would sit before an imaginary piano and visualize every note, every movement of both hands, hearing the music inside his head. Years later, when he returned to the stage, he astonished the world by playing pieces that seemed impossible for a single arm. His left hand had adapted in a prodigious way, as if his body had followed the invisible orders of his mind. Wittgenstein didn't just recover his art, he transformed it. His story shows that directed thought is not an abstract act, but a precise instruction to the body-mind system. What you imagine with intensity, your biology tries to execute. A century earlier, the French physiologist Michel Chevreul discovered something similar. In 1833, while studying the movement of pendulums and rods, he noticed a peculiar phenomenon. When a person held a suspended object and imagined it moving, the object really began to sway, even though the subject swore they hadn't moved their hand. That finding, later called the ideomotor effect, revealed that a simple thought could generate involuntary micromuscular contractions. In other words, the mind physically influences matter even without conscious intent. What you think translates in some way into action. Every thought is a motor impulse, a tiny electrical order traveling through the nerves, shaping your posture, your tone of voice, your breathing. The body constantly obeys the dominant thought, just as an instrument responds to the musician who plays it. Now imagine the power of a mind that thinks with deliberate intention, not a scattered mind, nor one anxious to control, but a mind trained to visualize with clarity, feel with presence, and release with trust. That combination, image, emotion, and detachment, is the silent formula of conscious creation. When you visualize a result, you activate a neural map. When you feel it as real, you anchor that map into your nervous system. And when you let go of expectation, you allow reality to find the most efficient path to manifest it. Every directed thought acts as a seed, but seeds need time, coherence, and the right environment. There's no point in planting hope one day and doubt the next. The creative mind doesn't respond to momentary intensity, but to consistency. Every day you repeat mental agreements. Every day you are reinforcing a version of the world. Ask yourself which one. Mental creation is not about escaping effort, but about aligning effort with the right direction. Wittgenstein didn't stop practicing, he simply practiced differently. His imagination became a laboratory where his body learned before touching a single real key. The key is understanding that imagination is not fantasy. It's the space where the invisible rehearses before becoming visible. Sometimes the synchronicity between thought and matter manifests so precisely that it seems poetic. In 1912, a curious story was recorded in an English newspaper, a story that would later become a symbol of that mysterious connection, the case of the stopped watch. An elderly man had a pocket watch that stopped at the exact moment he died. His family mentioned it as coincidence, but the remarkable thing is that, for weeks before, the man had told everyone, "My watch will stop with my last breath." And so it did. Perhaps his conviction, that sustained mental agreement, somehow conditioned the energy of the object, or perhaps the synchronicity was a symbolic way of showing that mind and matter are two faces of the same fabric. The important thing isn't the technical mystery, but the message. Reality responds to sustained intention. In fact, if you observe carefully, you'll see small synchronicities every day. You think of someone, and they call. You imagine an idea, and soon someone mentions it. You decide to change, and the world seems to conspire in your favor. These aren't magical coincidences, they are reflections of coherence between your thoughts, emotions, and actions. When those three forces vibrate at the same frequency, the universe acts as a faithful echo. To practice directed thought, you don't need rituals or complicated formulas, just 3 simple steps. Visualize, feel, and release. Visualize in detail, but without tension. Imagine the outcome as if it already existed. Notice colors, sounds, sensations. It's not about forcing an image, but allowing it to appear. Feel the corresponding emotion, as if you were already living it. That emotion is the language the mind uses to communicate with the body and the environment. Release the expectation. To trust doesn't mean to abandon. It means allowing the intelligence of the universe to complete the equation in the most harmonious way. Thought without emotion is a plan without energy. Emotion without direction is a river without a course. Only when both meet does conscious creation emerge. Mental training, like any art, requires practice. Don't expect instant results. Observe the small changes. Maybe you'll first notice more clarity, then less resistance, and finally, external manifestations. The creative mind doesn't work through sudden miracles, but through constant adjustments in the frequency of your awareness. Remember Chevreul's ideomotor effect. Even the subtlest movements begin with an idea. The same is true in your life. The invisible movements of your decisions, your words, your emotions are born from a prior thought. Change that root thought, and everything else begins to move in a new direction. When you find yourself caught in a spiral of worry or doubt, don't fight it. Breathe and direct your attention toward the version of yourself that has already resolved that situation. Imagine it. Feel it. Allow that inner frequency to guide your next actions. It may seem like a simple exercise, but you're reprogramming mental agreements. You're rewriting reality from within. Every thought you choose to hold is a declaration before the universe. If you repeat fear, the world will configure itself to confirm it. If you repeat gratitude, more reasons to be grateful will appear. It's a law of resonance that operates even when you don't understand it. The creative power of directed thought isn't about believing or not believing. It's about whether you use it consciously or let others use it for you. We all imagine, we all feel, we all project. The difference lies in who holds the wheel. Your mind never stops creating, not for a single second. The only thing you can decide is what it creates. So begin today. Observe your mental agreements and choose new ones. Visualize the life you want as an artist sketching a canvas. You don't need to know how every stroke will be painted. Just keep the vision alive. Like Wittgenstein before his invisible piano, practice in your mind until the inner music becomes so real that the world has no choice but to hear it. And when that happens, when you notice that the small, everyday miracles no longer surprise you, but feel natural. You'll know you've understood the secret. Matter doesn't obey chance, but the consciousness that contemplates it. Your mind doesn't just imagine. Your mind can create everything you imagine.